Good morning. Good morning, Creative Morning DC. I am Kaylee. I am your chapter host. It is a pleasure to welcome you once again to the Smithsonian American Art Museum, but in a different spot than we're normally in. We're in the auditorium. Thank you for joining us today. Okay. So, Creative Mornings. Who here is a first timer? Wow! That is like the biggest group of first timers. Could you all stand up if you don't mind? We'll do that again. I just want to really see you. Wow! Welcome, first timers. Okay, so Creative Mornings. For your first time or your 100th time, we are the largest IRL creative community in the world. Did you know that? Yes. Founded in 2008 by Tina Roth Eisenberg, also known as Swiss Miss, so that we could have community spaces that are founded in our community, rooted in our communities, for our communities. Everyone is creative. Everyone is welcome. We can say a woo to that. That's our manifest. That's our abbreviated manifesto. And today we are here for Blossom. Blossom. The theme of Blossom was chosen by our Pereira chapter from Colombia by Edwin Morales, and is presented to us by Adobe. We'll get into those slides in a minute. But as I had mentioned, largest IRL creative community in the world. What does that look like? It looks like close to 260 chapters worldwide, that we are all thinking about the same theme at the same time every month, around the same time every month, give or take a week. And we're gathered in our communities, but we're also connected globally. How are we connected globally? How do we manage that? Well, this is how we got this big. But we manage that by field trips. And is the image moving? Oh, it's not. Bummer. This image is supposed to move. That's okay. If you are new or this is your 100th Creative Mornings, field trips are available to you. These are free. These are online virtual experiences. They are curated by different members of different chapters globally. So you can go pop into a potter studio. You can take a sewing workshop. You can think about poetry. All of these things, they are listed on the site. And that is another way to be connected to that huge global community that we are. And of course, all of this is made possible by our global sponsor, Adobe. How many Adobe users do we have in the room? I wonder if it's like everyone. Okay, raise your hand if you're not quite maybe an Adobe user, but maybe you're like Adobe curious. Okay, there are resources for that. For the experienced Adobe user, for the brand new Adobe user, many resources. The Career Resource Center provides free guides and tools for whatever it is that your next step may look like. The Adobe Portfolio is a benefit of the Creative Cloud membership, where you can build up to 5 customizable websites. And then an additional bonus of the Creative Cloud membership is LinkedIn Premium, 3 months free of LinkedIn Premium, as sexy as that is, but hey, in these times, we'll take what we can get. Okay, and then finally, the Adobe Creative Apprenticeship. This is a program that they just launched this year. This one is, again, probably the most interesting, relevant to our community, in that this is also creating community spaces. So The apprenticeship program includes mentorship, includes real-world projects, getting hands-on experience, and also job opportunities. And as global as we are, which is totally cool, we are Creative Mornings DC, and we are made possible by our local partners, our local partnerships. So, Plants Alive. Everybody? Plants Alive. Woo! Yes. Plants Alive is a plant shop in Silver Spring, founded in 1975. That makes it practically an institution. It's older than our chapter. They specialize in rentals and houseplants, plethora of varietals, and Plants Alive has very generously, over the last several years, supported all of our ASL requests. So if there's ever yes, that is worthy of recognition. So if you or a friend, bring a friend, needs ASL, you contact us. We make sure it's provided, and we thank Plants Alive for providing that for us. And then Charlestown AV, also another longtime supporter of us. Everybody shout out Chris in the back. Woo! Charlestown is a boutique AV and media producer, and they support our videography. So if you miss a morning, you sleep in on a Friday, shame on you. But if you do, you can see the video. And we only have that available because of Charlestown's support of us. So thank you so much. And our title partner for the year. Okay, so this one we're gonna talk for a second, because I know we're gonna maybe get some clarity. Okay, first, Taste Coffee, launched this year, the brainchild of our very own Obi Akolo, Reggie Black, and Jason Reynolds. Taste is a lot of things, but it is not coffee. It's an invitation to slow down, to savor. Taste support allows us to explore new venues, curate meaningful experiences, including our annual birthday party, celebration, and other things. However, as you can tell, Taste Coffee is not our coffee sponsor. Just is everybody thoroughly confused? Are we rocking and rolling for this Friday? Okay. So, tastecoffee.com. You can order bagged coffee. It is meant for you to make your coffee however it is, the way that you make it at home. You are meant to slow down and savor it. It is not, they're not yet a brick and mortar site, and they're not yet coffee by the gallon, right? Okay, so we are, in fact, in need of a new coffee sponsor. Thank you, everyone who BYOC'd today, and also our apologies that you had to BYOC today. If you are interested in chatting with us, connecting with us, linking us up with a coffee hookup, we are all ears. Come find me after. Come find any of our volunteers who you'll be able to bully in a second, because we're going to point them out. So that is the situation for today, and we are very appreciative of Taste for their support of our chapter. And go and get some good coffee. Okay. Yes. And then we're not done with our thank yous. We are in a moment of gratitude this Friday morning. So big thank you to Smithsonian American Art Museum. Woo! We want to shout out Bridget, and Jess and Willie in the back there running AV. Woo! Bridget and Jess especially, because Bridget is my former work sanity partner when I used to work here. She will take a text message from me like, "Oh, we need a venue next week. You wanna support us?" And it's always been a yes. We've been in the Loose Center upstairs before. We've got more space so we can fill up more seats here in the auditorium. And we are so, so grateful, once again, to be here at the museum. Curious, any first-timers to this museum? All right. Welcome, first-timers. So most of us have been here before. Both things are great. So thank you to Sam, and a little plug. The Renwick Gallery, which is not in this building, that is the gallery next to the White House, down the mall. The current show is State Fair's Growing American Craft, and we are all encouraged to go and see it. We're going to take a quick little, very deeply scientific poll. Okay. So the Renwick Gallery is an interesting space. It's maybe a space that we could go and explore as well for future Creative Mornings. If you've ever been there, how do we feel about possibly sitting on the floor in that space and having minimal seating for ADA? So raise your hand if you are maybe okay with that idea. Done. We will explore that in the future. Okay, go and check out the Renwick Gallery. We will see what we can put together, and maybe we will be there sometime in the future. Okay, so this is a sad moment. I'm really gonna try not to be all in my field. Okay, so we are saying farewell, not farewell because they're still around, but no longer on the team, to 3 institutional volunteers. Amari, Obi, and Tyler are officially signing off this year. Amari, if you have been, if you've been to previous Creative Mornings, if you have volunteered previously, Amari was your guy. He's here on the left. Amari was our volunteer coordinator. Obi, as you all are aware, our former host and my sanity partner in taking on this. And then Tyler, I also think this is like the best picture of Tyler because Tyler is always hugging someone. Tyler was our CFO and chief of staff and everything guy. So they're all going on to other projects or taking a break, and we are really going to miss them. None of them are here for this embarrassing moment that I wanted to embarrass them in person for. But next time you see them, tell them that they were thoroughly embarrassed and they missed it. Yes. But that brings us to, slightly happier news. With some outgoing volunteers, we now have a new core volunteer team. Look at all those beautiful faces. Okay, team, if you are, and I know some of you are here, so don't try. I'll point you out. Please stand. All right. There's too many to name. We have a big new team. So grateful and thankful for all of you. We're gonna have such a fun year coming up together, making all this madness happen, keeping me on track. If you are interested in volunteering, we have a new email, a new person for you to go and harass. It's Shahir now. Here, can you stand again? Yeah. So same DC Creative Mornings email, but new email otherwise. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, we're doing good. It's like, wait, where am I in my notes? All right, and now the real reason that you are here. Woo, yes, come on, energy. Woo! Yes. The real reason that you are here. Again, we are thinking about Blossom today, and our fabulous speaker who is going to take us through some thoughts on this is my pleasure to introduce Shilpi Malinowski. Sorry, hallucination. Okay, a writer, oral historian, journalist who explores themes of migration, memory, and belonging, among others, and whose book, Shaw, LeDroit Park, and Bloomingdale, was described thusly by Megan M. on Amazon. This was a 5-star review. A long. Megan M. wrote a book about how much she liked your book. This is just a little piece of it. This book is a gem. It speaks to the author's heart and the resonance. This is the part that I thought was crucial. The author really listened. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kaylee. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you so much to Creative Mornings for inviting me here and giving me this very beautiful prompt of Blossom, which sort of inspired me to think a little bit positively. So first I want to explain who I am and what we're going to talk about today. So who I am, my name is Shilpi, and that's that old picture of me. For many years, I was a journalist. So I wrote for magazines and newspapers and for the internet, and I wrote on two main topic areas, DC neighborhoods and DC development and growth, and also the Indian American community. I was also a teacher. I was a high school journalism teacher, so I was very immersed in the journalism world. So I want to talk a little bit about how I kind of switched into oral history. So this book here, it says Shaw, LeDroit Park, and Bloomingdale. So initially in 2019, I was a journalist and I had this idea for an article because in 2019, this area, these are all adjacent neighborhoods and they're all basically in the zip code 20001. And that zip code had been identified as the second most gentrified zip code in the whole country in terms of how fast the housing prices had gone up. But I lived there. I lived kind of in the middle of all those neighborhoods. And I realized when you look at any individual block, there are people who moved in at all different times. There are people who moved in the 50s and the 80s and 2 years ago, and they all bought at very different prices. Maybe some people bought at $8,000, $50,000, $100,000, the same house. Some people bought for more than $1 million. So my pitch for this article was, let's look at a day in the life of this block, or what life feels like when you have all of these people living alongside each other. How do their expectations differ? So I kind of was moving ahead with this article, and I started doing interviews, and I just found myself doing these very, very long interviews with people. I was going into their living rooms and just basically getting their life history of what their life was like in the neighborhood and what they thought about it, how they felt about it. And I would stay with them for an hour and a half, record every word, and I just couldn't bear to reduce it down to an article. So I started thinking about it in a longer term way. So I was doing this project, and then at some point, my friend Beth might be here, she might not be. She was like, I think actually what you're doing is oral history. And she introduced me to this group called the DC Oral History Collaborative. Does anybody know about the DC Oral History Collaborative? So the DC Oral History Collaborative is amazing. It's part of Humanities DC, and it's basically like a modern day Federal Writers Project. So I got connected to this group, and I started learning about oral history as a field that differs from just doing interviews in a journalism way. There's like a very subtle difference in the relationship between the interviewer and the narrator. And in oral history, the narrator has a lot more control over their words. So I just kind of subtly changed it into an oral history project. So that kind of takes us to, that's kind of a longish story about how I'm an oral historian now. That book came out in 2021. It's full of interviews from people in that area. I also did a project in Mount Pleasant. And this is going to be relevant because what am I going to talk about today? So today we're going to read. I pulled a whole bunch of oral histories for you all. They're all from people who live in DC. I'm going to put the quotes up verbatim so that I'll read them out loud to you. And I want us to kind of reflect on what everybody's saying. And it's all about DC. And in terms of which quotes I pulled, because of Blossom really made me think about, obviously you think about like a bud blossoming into something bigger. So it really made me think about people who take small steps or plant a small seed and then it ends up growing into something bigger. And so I pulled all of these quotes that have to do with building community. And maybe sometimes it starts with something very small and then it grows and becomes larger and larger. And so all the examples are from very different fields. They're from art, they're from music, they're from public safety, public space improvements, or even just like informal communities that take care of each other. So that is going to be my topic today. We're going to do a lot of reading. Everybody knows how to read or listen. I was also wondering if we could reflect after every quote. Is that going to be possible? So we have a microphone. We're going to read, I think I have eight or so different people. And I used to be a teacher, so I love interactive. So interactive speeches. So hopefully you guys can reflect. Just say anything that comes to mind, after you see the quote. All right, is everybody ready for the oral histories? Right. Okay, this is the first one. This is Nick who's talking. All right, so I'm going to read Nick's quote. It goes on for 2 slides. I think a lot about Hawaii when I lived there, where there's a real stark divide between locals and transplants. Are you from here or not? It's about being respectful of the place that you live. The term they use in Hawaii is effing haole. Don't be a effing haole. Haole is not necessarily a bad word. It means generally a white person who's not from the island. But if someone ever called me an effing haole, that means I'm being a disrespectful beep. You're that drunk person running down the beach and not paying attention to the other people around you. You're trying to touch a sea turtle. You're using the place rather than being a part of it. You're extracting. I don't think that you would necessarily see that behavior happening that often if people lived in this neighborhood their whole lives. They probably would have gotten yelled at by, somebody's mom or dad. They just know, don't piss off Mrs. Whoever down the street. So I wanted to start with this quote because I was really struck by the word extracting. I thought that was such a great word when you think about communities. So what does it really mean to be a part of a community and to be invested in a community? Are you looking for what the community can give you, what you can extract from it, or is there a way to actually contribute to the health of the community? And he specifically is talking about gentrification and being a new resident and how to be conscious of that positioning. So I'll give you guys a moment to think. Anybody have any thoughts they want to share? Just anything that this quote makes you think of? Yes.
Well, some of this one, but they're not, and I'm not from there. But I walk like they told me once for the day. So they over romanticize parts of the city and they want something to be and stuff. And not in those stuff can distract with the medicine stuff to get it one this one direct learn.
Just like a disassociate connection for just taking something and absorbing it for your own identity.
Right.
Interesting. Cool. We'll take one more.
Oh, we have a mic. So, yeah, unless you can talk really loud.
They got it. He bought it.
I got it.
It's probably.
So many.
Thank you.
Hi. It was interesting. I was just talking to someone I met in the lobby beforehand about I moved to DC about 7 years ago, and I still feel very new to the city, having gone through the pandemic, et cetera. But for a long time, I live in Wheaton, Maryland, and it's really recently that I've really started thinking about, like, how can I contribute to this neighborhood, this community that I'm really growing to love. And I'm naturally that way, but I think I've been very resistant as a transplant. I've moved to a few different cities in my young adult life and hadn't felt like I would be any place permanent. So it really didn't feel like I didn't want to invest, right? I didn't really want to get tied down and really fall in love. And now that I know that I've accepted that I think I'm going to be here for a long time, I've recently really started thinking about what can I give so that I can really be a part of it, right? So I feel like feels like being on the outside, like an observer for a long time. And then once you really feel like, okay, this is actually home, now I'm thinking long-term, how can I invest? How can I improve? What can I bring? So I do really resonate with the extractive feeling, right? I didn't want to take anything from it, but eventually I'm like, how can I give, right? What can I give? So I think I've lived in a lot of cities and people go, oh, don't you feel like a gentrifier? And I'm like, generally, no, because not that I really want anything from the place that I'm living. I've always wanted to give back, but I've just never felt like it would be worthy of the investment because I just didn't know how long I would be in a place. So I think a lot of times in DC, because of the transientness of the city, there's a lot of cool people and a lot of amazing people here, but sometimes it just feels like I don't know how long I'll be here.
Yeah.
So the investment kind of feels like,
yeah, do I even have the right to invest if I'm not going to be here for too long? Good, interesting. All right, on to the next one. Okay, this is Greg. Okay, I was here for 50 years, and my parents, they were here forever. Oh, there were so many kids. This block and that block, we were very close-knit. We looked out for each other back then. You could leave the door wide open because everybody looked out for each other. It was a family atmosphere. Everybody looked out for everybody. Didn't nobody have to worry about anybody coming in your house or doing anything to anybody because this block and that block was always a safe zone. We wouldn't let outside guys come in our neighborhood and talk to the females. They were like our little sisters, our little cousins. If you wanted to talk to some guy, you had to meet him at Kennedy Playground, but they couldn't come here in the neighborhood. Every Halloween, there was a line around that corner up the street. My mother baked cookies. She would start the day before Halloween and just bake cookies. Everybody came to get the cookies. And then as they got older, the children from way back got older, so their kids came. Their parents still came and got cookies too. All right, fun fact, this is the same house that Nick lives in. Mr. Mason lived there for 50 years. There's a very long and complicated story about why the ownership changed that I'm not going to get into right now, but it's in the book. But I love this quote because it's about caretaking as a form of community building, like this being, watching out for the girls, being aware of everybody who's coming into the neighborhood, just the feeling of being watched as a form of care and community building and as a form of comfort, I thought was really nice. And also the cookies, it's like spending 24 hours baking cookies for everybody in the neighborhood, I thought was really sweet. All right, anybody have any reflections? Yes.
Hi. So when I was reading the quote, I think two things struck my attention, which is safety and a sense of belonging. And he mentioned that everybody felt comfortable leaving their doors open, but in order to do that, you need to know those around you. So when the people around you are not a known quantity, you can't do that. When you're not to know someone, you need to walk up to someone and get to know them, see them on the sidewalk, you say hi, strike up a conversation. So I thought that was interesting, this idea of safety starts from knowing people.
Okay. So you have to be known in order to feel safe in that sort of community.
Thanks. This made me sort of think about how touchstones that one community may think, oh, this is what this means to me, can mean something very different to somebody else. So the idea that for me, halloumi is candy corn, right? That brings me back. Whereas for the folks in this community, it's cookies. And so even when you think that there is a common experience that you can sort of bond with somebody over, it's a good to go sort of into it, recognizing that, well, maybe they actually have a different perspective, even though it is a widely accepted common experience. Not everybody actually experiences it the same way.
Mm-hmm. Sure, one more.
I was thinking a lot about ICE. I don't mean to bring down the vibe, but I live in Mount Pleasant, and that's been the neighborhood that I've lived in the entire time I've been here in DC, like you said, about 7 years. And I specifically, one of the reasons why I chose Mount Pleasant is because I'm Latina, and that is a very Latin neighborhood. There's a certain, it's no longer there, the 7-Eleven corner where old men like to play chess and checkers, and that's not happening anymore because ICE, are just wandering around the neighborhood looking. There's also an immigration center for resources. They've been very mindful of their hours. And I think it's just very disheartening.
Yeah. Everybody talked about the plaza when I was doing my Mount Pleasant project.
Yep. The plaza is very important to Mount Pleasant. And it's just, it's extremely disheartening, and not to see just old retired men wanting to play chess and checkers and dominoes, and you can go up to them and ask to play a game, and they totally welcome anyone. And again, that's not happening, and it's really sad. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I hold your neighbors close, I guess.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next one. All right, this is Pepe, and this is a story from Mount Pleasant. Pepe actually is lucky enough to live in the house that he grew up in. So he has 70-year history in this one house. I would say that my parents' home was probably one of the only hubs where people from all over South America and the Caribbean met. This home, this is no exaggeration. This home has seen thousands of people came through this home, whether my people or my parents' people or our people. From the good side is that we had people from Santo Domingo, Cuba, Puerto Rico, American Blacks. We had Guatemala. I mean, we had all of South America practically, and we'd learn from each other. They would bring their cuisine, and we would learn about their cuisine. And my mother turned out to be a multinational cook because she would learn from all the ladies. The brothers would say, man, y'all some hip mofos. And we go, man, y'all some hip mofos. And they said, how can we unite our people? We have the means, music. So we took it upon ourselves for 3 years to put on free concerts at Colorama Park, where we, of course, give spiels about bringing the Latins and Blacks together. So it started with maybe 40 or 50 people the first year. The second year, it was at least 200 people. The third year, it spilled onto the streets. And he's talking about a band called Zapata, which is an Afro-Latina band. And what I loved about this quote, the reason I chose it is because it's about connecting through difference. So the food and the music, it's sort of understanding that there's difference and finding a way to bring it all together and learn from each other. I thought that was really beautiful. All right, reflections. Wait, I forgot it. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I don't know, it's another third quote and I feel like I'm crying. I don't know why. I was getting so emotional reading that. For me, this perspective from also immigrant perspective, it's my adoptive country.
Where are you from?
I'm from Russia. Yeah. These days it's I'm from Russia. So it's so weird when I hear people say, I've lived in this house for 30, 50 years. I'm how is this possible? I've changed up to this most 20 houses, maybe. And it's something out of this world when people say that to me. It's
how? How you were able to do that. Connecting on the differences, that is pretty cool. I live now in a neighborhood that is really diverse, and this is what I love about it. Like everybody brings something, and I feel thankful because our kids, about 5-6 years old, they're just bouncing from one house to another, playing after school, and I feel like this is so unique. I'm listening to this like from the past, and we have a bit of that now, and it feels safe, and I hope it lasts.
Yes, one more here.
Hello. Funny enough, that's actually my coworker. We both wanted to share about the same thing. So I am a DC native. I was born in Nigeria, but I came here when I was 3 months old. So DC is all that I know. And what I have enjoyed so much about living in DC is part of it being transient is it being so diverse. So I love that ever since I was young, I noticed that folks who are from different places, we all ended up congregating in the same areas. Columbia Heights was one of those places, and it has a big, Latin population, but also the Africans would go there, and other Asian Americans as well. So I've just enjoyed that is something that I've had here as I've spent time in some other places just traveling and not seeing that diversity. I always knew that DC was where I should come back to. So that's just something that came to mind as I read this with different groups of people coming and being together.
Yeah, you can make something really beautiful out of it.
Yes, and building that community, as you said.
Yeah. All right, next one. Hi, this is Olivia. Olivia actually passed away a few months after I did the interview last year, but she had a long, wonderful life. And this is also from Mount Pleasant. In the 1980s and 90s, all the murals started getting built because the city all of a sudden had money. The city had money for murals because there was this whole building arts project. The very famous one is the one on 18th Street in Lanier. It goes around the corner. It's behind the bank. It's a whole wall. That mural we had at Centro de Arte, and we restored it twice. A people without murals is a demoralized people. In Spanish, un pueblo sin murales es un pueblo desmoralizado. They're playing on the words mural and morale. That was a real good neighborhood builder. People would start coming home from work, anybody, and drop everything and help paint. Oh, they had it all drawn in, All you had to do is fill in the color. That was another fun era that we were doing murals and getting money to do it. So I chose this one for a few reasons. One is that I thought it was interesting that this sort of like money for public arts coming from the federal government ebbs and flows with different administrations. I really like the visual idea of people coming together and building this mural, building like a huge art project together. Like it's something kids do all the time, and it's so nice when adults get to do it too. And I loved the quote, this idea that there's something larger about making a mural together that is somehow connected to the community, the morale of the individuals in the community, and that having a mural says something about your identity and your spirit and keeps the spirit stronger. So I loved that idea from this quote. Okay, reflections.
Hi, so for me, murals have become a really important part of my lived experience and community in a couple of surprising ways. So our son's okay, but he was hit by a car on his bike on the closest crosswalk to our home. And we were working with him on reclaiming that space. He was 4 years old. And so he actually, with a friend, they went to the local hardware store and they got paint, and they just put different rainbow handprints in that space. And then an amazing group called Chalk Ride. I don't know how many of you know of them, but they do incredible murals in the city, a women's collective. They also work to do some murals in that area. Sorry, getting over a cold. And we live in DuPont Circle, and they did beautiful murals, just really speaking to the history of that community and to the first drag queen who was in the area that we know of, who was in the late 1800s. And then two other things just about how I feel like murals are unfortunately really under threat in our society. So thinking about the importance of public art really for democracy. So one, we used to live in Barbados, and a number of my friends in Barbados were working on creating public art because there really wasn't public art there. And it's interesting because my friends there were also gay, which at the time was illegal in Barbados, and thinking about how the queer community in Barbados was also involved in really trying to bring about public art and freedom of expression. Thankfully, it's not illegal anymore in Barbados, but that happened literally over the past couple of years. And then finally, just to bring it to the present day, I learned from some of my friends in the public art space about what's happened outside the Pulse nightclub in Florida and just how destructive it's been for some of the public art, thinking about that tragedy. And living in DuPont Circle and having so many rainbow murals in the area, it really does have me thinking about how important these are to me and to my children. Just the fact that rainbows are a part of how we experience community, and we have crosswalks that are rainbows, and both how incredible that is, but how taking that away can really take away feelings of safety for people too.
Any other thoughts? Part of an interest in that is okay. It's here.
Yeah, it's really interesting because for me, I would have a few stories related to murals. I'm Ukrainian, and nowadays, I travel a lot. I've changed quite a few countries, and there is this group that makes murals. They're called Интересные куски. And when I go to different places, different countries, different continents, I would see their murals. And for me, it's always, this feeling, this reminder of home, and just we are all over, and you just right away feel welcome in the city. And then nowadays, also in Ukraine or in different places, we use them as a way to commemorate our defenders or people fighting for freedom, for revolutions, and so on. But then also, now I'm based in Portugal. I'm actually part of Creative Mornings in Lisbon, so that's why it's my first time in this place. And it's so great to see, how the community is actually there. And when you guys travel, do drop by Creative Mornings, whatever, 250 something cities that is. So there is a project in neighborhood called Tambujeira. It was considered being dangerous. It still is. There are a lot of different stories you would hear in news. And recently I met with a person who started a project there of making murals for all SDG goals, UN goals. And that now pulled more creative projects in the area, and now people come to neighborhood to have tours run by teenagers from this neighborhood. And some people would come and they're like, oh, we can make a music studio here. Oh, we can make this here. So basically just by starting these murals, and by fundraising from different donors. First, he couldn't find one donor. He was like, we ended up having 30 donors for each mural. The neighborhood started to flourish, and people are drawn towards it now, and it does help local business, and it also helps to tell stories of local people, because this is the way he wanted to build it. So this all is just to say that there is much more power to murals and to things like this than we can think sometimes. I love that. Thank you. All right, next one. Oh, does anybody know who this is? Yes, this is Ian MacKay. It's most famous person I got to interview for this project. It's exciting. He grew up in DC, so I was very lucky. He kind of explained this whole story of his parents' life in DC before he even existed, and then what his life was like as a child. All right, the kids who grew up here, we were on the streets. As a skater, as a skateboarder, all we do is ride around looking for places to skate. And you went all over town in the middle of the night. You just learned the streets. And I have to say, in the 70s, being a white kid in the city, it was tricky. Kids would come after you, terrifying, chased by kids, thrown against a wall. You run or you just avoid, you learn. I don't want to exaggerate it, but it was terrifying. So then, by being punk, we're tough guys. We were done running, and we had a role. We were trying to make art. We were making art. We were making a culture The thing about punk rockers is we were trying to, speaking for myself, I wanted to have an extended family. That's what I wanted. I wanted to have a community. I wanted to have a family and a non-biological connection with people who would understand. I just love that we were done running. It's like it really helped me understand punk music coming from DC a little bit. That punk has so much energy, and I can understand how it kind of gave the people in the community some strength. And they were really young when they started that movement. They were like in their teens. So I found this quote very interesting. Any thoughts? Yes.
Hi, thank you for this. There's a couple of different through lines, I think, from some of the other quotes into this one around children. So I've lived in DC for about 20-something years, and we're at the age where my friends are having children, and we're talking about, all right, you're not a DC native, but your kids are.
Yeah.
And so what does that connection look like for them, and how they build non-biological connections, and then their kids are now building their new DC native experience.
Yeah.
So it just kind of brought all together that DC is evolving as every other city is, and making it your own will then allow your kids to become the next, version of DC.
Great. I might keep it to one comment after each quote just so we can get through all the slides, but thank you very much. And then there'll be time at the end. Okay, this is Joe. This is a quote from Joe Eldridge. And this is also about a place in Mount Pleasant. I lived in a group house, a community house, an intentional community house on Lamont Street. A bunch of us had lived in Chile, and providentially, we all landed in Washington and lived in what we would have called a comunidad de base, a base community, because we'd all lived in Chile. We'd all gone through the military coup on September the 11th, 1973. It was profound, changed my life. That coup was the touchstone of my life and subsequent efforts to engage in solidarity with the people of Chile. The Chile house was a solidarity house. We took in so many people who were fleeing the dictatorship and needed refuge. We put on concerts, and we had All Souls. We were always meeting at All Souls. We were very active in protest. My energies were completely devoted to the political struggle to stop the United States from supporting this military dictatorship. I think the most significant political years of my life were spent those 12 years with this organization, working on solidarity with Latin America. And this organization just celebrated its 50th anniversary. So a couple of things about why I chose this. One is the importance of physical places as a way to build community. So the house, the group house, is like more and more people know about the house. They feel like it's a place where they can land. I thought that was really powerful. And also All Souls, I think, is a church, to have a meeting place, that these two places helped support a whole activist movement that became very strong and lasted for 50 years. I just thought it just made me understand the importance of physical places and community building. I have time for one comment, one reflection. Yes.
When I was reading that, it made me think of a physical place that I grew up in DC. I want to say 20 years ago. It's a place on Butternut Street near the Tacoma Park area in DC, and it used to be a Safeway store that turned into a church. And the church started in the 80s and 90s, and my parents raised us there for 20 years of my life, and I think I've been gone for 10 years. But it was this brick house where people from different immigrant communities, from the Caribbean, from Latin America, from Africa, they had just immigrated to the US and to DC, and everyone in that church depended on each other for like everything. Like people brought their kids there, to be babysat. There was a school at the church, so we were there like 7 days a week. There was also like services. And so when I think about recreating that now, even though I've left the church, I think about like, what would that physical space be like to like recreate that in DC? And it's just really powerful.
Yeah, like what would
powerful place. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. All right, next. All right, this is Leroy. He's talking about Shaw. All right, one of the pledges I made as an ANC commissioner was, we want to clean up the drugs, and I did. You're talking about the 1980s. You would see 200 people walking down here from 5th Street to R Street up to P Street. 200 people. Crackheads, drug dealers just out on the street. Drive-by shootings, that kind of thing. All kinds of prostitution. So I closed all these crack houses down. I really started making progress. I shut down 56 of them. I took pictures of the drug dealers I ran into, and the police would say, "Let me see your pictures." The police had to go through red tape, but I had all the equipment, cameras, binoculars, I had patrol groups. People were scared of me. I feel that the white folks around here look at me like, what are you doing here? They don't know the history. They don't know I closed the crack houses down. I'm saying to myself, by me shutting down the crack houses and open air drug markets, you're safe. They benefited from my work. But one white couple, they're sweet, man. They're very nice, respectful. We love them. When a group of white people come into a historic Black neighborhood, they should actually try to blend into the community. Every year, I throw a block party in honor of the police department. They came and had a very good time. They came and blended in. There was no racism. There's no agenda there. If I had more neighbors like that, then it would be lovely for Blacks and whites to coexist. So the reason I chose this is because I feel Leroy really makes me think about what does it mean to really care about public safety in your community, and like be willing to risk yourself for public safety and to care about the safety of everybody in the community. I think he really put his actions behind his words, and how public safety is important to the health of a community. I don't have time for one comment on that if anybody wants to reflect.
Hi, everyone. Reading these quotes as a millennial, I think I'm just reflecting on like the culture of like unpaid labor, and I'm not supposed to do anything for anyone unless it's paid. Otherwise, you sort of cross my boundaries, and how like all of these people are just not seeing it like unpaid labor, but like a natural state of living in interdependence with one another that I feel like we have sacrificed for like a more capitalistic framework of what it means to depend on each other. And that should always be paid work. And what does it mean to rediscover the inherent reward of interdependence as being in a state of community with one another?
Yeah, I love that. I love that when I was doing these interviews, I sort of realized community, that we have your like self and your family, and you have your work, and community exists in this other realm that is completely invisible, I think, to a lot of people. But it holds everything together. Next. All right, and she's talking about the park at LeDroit, which is a big public space in LeDroit Park. When we moved here, my husband, John, noticed the trees weren't doing well, and we're big nature lovers, tree lovers, and just asked the Civic Association, how can we get involved to help the trees in our park? And they said, there's a committee on the park. So basically, that's how we got involved. Within a year, we'd organized a huge tree planting. John and a couple other people watered that first batch of trees for 2 summers, and we got to know a lot of people that way. Sometimes the little kids would come help. We took a survey of the community asking what they want improved with the park, and the main priorities were the field, shade, safety, and movement of people. The council members put money in the budget. It was passed. The first set of renovations was to redo the field and soil that would allow grass and trees to grow. Since I've been so involved, it really, I'm not exaggerating, it made my heart soar to see how many people use this park since the virus hit. People working out, people picnicking, lots of kids would play pickup football and soccer and frisbee. There were people coming in that I had never seen, young guys who would come and play soccer. Our theory is that the more we make the park welcoming for all kinds of users during all parts of the day and the year, that will make it safer. So I chose this because I love thinking about how public space is used, because it's one of these public spaces where we all meet, right? So people have to encounter strangers and community members, and everybody, it has to be a place where everybody is welcome. So the idea of making public space improvements to improve the health of your whole community was really appealing, I guess. Yeah, one reflection.
Hey, but the thing is,
Oh, sure. Yes.
so while you're reading this, oh, thank you.
While you were reading this, I was thinking a lot. So my family's from Panama City, Panama. And I followed this lady that she's a urban development professional. So she goes to just like different streets throughout Panama City. And Panama City, like me living in DC, is definitely not as walker friendly. So there's like potholes, there's a lack of trees for shade. And she kind of like points that out. So when I read that, as someone who, as someone who really loves that country and I love going there and I want to see it flourish and just flourish, I always wonder, like, how can those improvements be made that she's pointing out? Because I want to see my people walking in comfort like I get to experience here. So just seeing how a member of the community took it upon herself to do that. I think a lot of times we think the government, and of course the government should do certain things, but certain things the government is just not going to do. And we as members of our community, we really have to take control and take responsibility over our space and be the ones to do those changes. So yeah, I feel very inspired by this.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. All right, we just have one more quote, and then we'll have time for more reflections and questions. A little bit more time. All right, final quote. This is Gretchen. Art All Night started here in Shaw, and then I took it to the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities and said, you really need to expand this. The initial idea was from Europe's Art Nuit Blanche. The whole idea was for Art All Night is to have people out all night. We want everybody out in the streets. This year, which was 2019, at Parcel 42 at 7th Street and Rhode Island Avenue, we set up a site where people were there selling their art. We had a stage there at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, walking up 7th Street. I couldn't get through the sidewalks. It was packed. When I walk around here now, I think, my goodness, I couldn't do this so many years ago. And of course, Art All Night still exists. It's getting bigger every year. I think it was just last weekend. So that's it. That's the final slide. So we have a couple minutes just for any questions and also for final reflections on community and ways that you have seen community building in your own life. So I'll open up the floor.
I'm Liz. I think just the idea of volunteering, I think that was a really beautiful just thing to talk about, and what you mentioned about like this idea that like we do things for money, and like when we're volunteering, this idea of like it's taking something from me, this is my time, but you get so much back. And I've been really involved with the PTA at my kids' school, which is another like public good that we have that's like under threat. And, it takes putting time into that. I've gotten so much back just in terms of friendships and parents I'm friends with, and then getting to know my community. It's a neighborhood school, like all the families that we're close to. So I think it's really interesting to think about volunteering as, it's not just you giving something up. There's so much more that just blossoms from that and that you receive. So I know you're building something together. Yeah. I have more questions.
I worked at the back.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing these oral histories. I think it's really important for us to hear, and for the voices of people in our community to be amplified. This really just resonated with me in a lot of ways, but one of the things I really got out of it was just the idea of selflessness. And a quote that I've been hearing, let's say a quote, is just like the idea of building a community requires inconveniencing yourself. A part of that, like I agree to an extent, something about the word inconvenience, because if you truly care about a community, it's not an inconvenience. Like it's
too much.
Exactly. And that's not what I got. And so for me, just hearing that, it's like they truly appreciate, care, and love their community enough to where they're willing to extend themselves. They're willing to contribute in the ways they have. And honestly, it's sad to see that even in my neighborhood, I've been living there for 5 years, but our landlord is a family friend who's lived there for decades. And just speaking with her and hearing about how much has changed, it's sad because even now, in the 5 years
I've been there, as more people come in, it just feels more and more isolated. And people who move here oftentimes, it's just very selfish. I remember when I first moved here, I would greet people, they wouldn't even greet me back. And to me, that was like a slap in the face. But then I come to realize, like, unfortunately, that's the nature of a lot of transplants who move here, and it's stripping from that community aspect. And so I really hope that things like this, hearing things like this, at the very least encourages us to at least say hi and at least want to, you know, get to know the people that we live next to, because it's actually scary that we don't know who we're living next to. And I think that's where this community building can start. It's like little things too. And so thank you for sharing this. And I feel even more encouraged to continue to do my part and do even more, and not out of convenience or inconveniencing myself, but because I care enough about the people around me.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know Shilpi, and we live in the same neighborhood, and there's two things that I often get like asked about our neighborhood and like my community building. I'm on the board of a park in our neighborhood that I can get into. Shilpi knows a lot about it. If you live in Bloomingdale, it's Crispus Attucks Park. So I'm on the, yeah, it's in the book. And so I'm on the board of it. You know, I'm younger than most of the people on the board, and the question I'm often asked is like, well, how'd you do that? Because it's volunteer. I just asked. And like, I think a lot of people get really hesitant to get involved in their community because they're nervous about rejection, because it sucks. But just ask. Like, if you see a need, just ask. Like, even your local business, like maybe they need like a social media person to get more business. I mean, that's just a small example. But just ask. Like with the park, like I love this park so much, and it has such a rich history in the neighborhood. And, you know, I am white. I want to like be conscientious of that. But it's a volunteer park, you know, and it's run by the community. And so doing like their website, their social media, like that was an easy thing for me to do. And second is also talk to your neighbors, to your point. My neighborhood, my street, Bates Street, which is between First and North Capitol, 2 blocks south of Big Bear, we have a group chat that's like maybe 40 people. And it started because Kylie, who lived in the neighborhood, not as long as me, but only like most recently, she just put a sticky note on everyone's door and said, hey, I'm here. Like, here's my number. And it's a very small part of my community of like, hey, like our neighbor, her dog ran away and went missing. And we were all like, where's Disco? Like, we all were like on alert. And then subsequently we've had like small little happy hours, but it's not we'll say hi to each other on the street, but it's as small as like, hey, I have a package coming, can someone grab it? And that's like a really beautiful way of doing it. So like, I think a lot of people if I can speak my own horn, like a little bit good about that, and just like talk to people and ask, and just like put a sticky note on someone's door. I think if that's something that you're trying to build, in that, because it's been successful for me, and it's really important.
No, that's great. I know a dog named Disco in our neighborhood, so maybe
it's probably the same one.
2 more questions, and I'll release you, but I'll stick around for as long as you want. So 2 more. Okay.
I'm the bad. Oh. Okay. I'll get you all under.
Thank you, Shilpi. My name is Namal. I've lived in DC since 1984. I was born in Sri Lanka. I've lived in the house where I live now since 2009. And one of the things that struck me about all the oral histories is that they're each highlighting some sort of solution. And as people were talking, I was thinking about the words. I like the word service better than volunteer, because it just feels more like it's something that is part of you and that you do always, rather than you do one time. The acts of service to your community, the sort of the opposite of complaining about what's wrong in your neighborhood, and rather focusing on what could be right if you work together with other people, and versus self-serving, which maybe goes back to the point that the one person made about millennials and just that sort of thinking about how can this serve me versus how can I serve us, including myself. And having been born in Sri Lanka, my early childhood is like people flowing in and out of the house. There's just a lot more fluidity between who is welcomed into your space and who you go to visit. When I first moved into my current house, people would still sit on the stoops. We did. Now we don't. There's a lot of mosquitoes, and that's partly why, but that kind of lack of connection, the little threads of connection between people, that isolation is something that really makes me sad. And this sort of connection is nice to see. Thank you.
Thank you. One last one. I can't divide that. I thought the microphone, whoever.
Thank you. Shilpi, from one oral historian to another, thank you so much for doing this. From one Washingtonian to another, thank you so much for doing this. I'll be brief. I have two things. One is Olivia, that's Olivia Calaval, right? So I didn't know she had died. So I thank you for bringing her words back, because we're in a Smithsonian museum. Like, the history of the Smithsonian would be incomplete without an account of Olivia's work. The history of Mount Pleasant would be incomplete without an account of Olivia's presence. So it's a really good reminder of how oral history has this power to preserve that library that gets destroyed proverbially when somebody dies, right? And then the other thing is a thought that I had a couple times, like with the good brother Pepe, with the music, and a couple other people, the punk guy. You know, when we do oral history, we're often driven by the question of like, who is this person in front of me, right? Like the task is to get an account of this person and their identity. And so often in our society, we're driven to identify people by their demographics, whether it be race, gender, age, etc. But oral history teaches us that the identities that tend to be more interesting and more soulful and more meaningful are based on what people do. And what your presentation has helped me realize is, if we're thinking about community, it's also like who people do whatever it is with, exactly. So just thank you for the good reminders. Thank you for spreading the good word of oral history. This is a great way to start a Friday. Thank you, Shilpi.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great last comment. Thank you all so much for coming on a Friday and cutting into your Friday, and also for engaging with oral history with me. I hope that you got something out of it. And thank you again. I'm going to hang around for a little while.
Thank you. Go to it. Take a look forward. And that's place telling source. Okay.
Busboys and poets, or politics and prose. All right. Okay. Few things. First, we're gonna start with housekeeping. So for the two in the crowd who this is your first time in this museum, welcome again. Sorry to single you guys out, but this is one of the only Smithsonian's that opens its doors at, Bridget, 11:30? 11:30. I used to work here and I don't remember that part. 11:30. It is now 10:08. What does that mean? It means you don't have to go home, but unfortunately you can't stay here. But you can come back at 11:30. So the galleries, the museum will be open at 11:30. We can't stick around here. There are restrooms in the lobby and then upstairs as well, but we will have to make our way out when we conclude. Let's see. The many, very, very, very excited about this, you all. But the many of you who are first timers to Creative Mornings DC, I don't know how other chapters do it. Lisbon, love to connect with you. Monterey, love to hear from you. Anybody else visiting from another chapter? Yeah? Shout it out. Yep. New York City? All right. So what we do in our chapter, and I don't know if other chapters do this, because it's the end of the week and our lives are what they are, and silence is such a rarity, and to be able to experience collective silence is even rarer. We do a few moments together before we close in silence. So we're going to do that in just a minute. The shout outs from other chapters. So today is the second to last Friday of the month, right? We're on our normal schedule. Yeah. So we normally do second to last Friday of the month. Why? When most globally, everybody does the last Friday of the month. Because speaking of community and connecting and other chapters, did you know the Baltimore chapter is just a 45-minute Amtrak ride away? They sure are. And they meet on the last Friday of the month. So, quick little plug. If this moment of community and blossom and what it means to be together continues to resonate with you, and next week you want to do this again some more, you have that opportunity. And you know, that slide that we had earlier about however many chapters we have around the world, that's one of the cool things about Creative Mornings. We're always free. And whenever you're traveling, if it happens to be on a Friday, or even not, you might get lucky on a Thursday, you should check out what the local chapter is doing and when. Okay, so that was our housekeeping. This was a really interesting talk. Thank you again. Thank you again, Shilpi, for this. So I usually feel the pressure to say something approaching profound at the end of these things to wrap us up. But we got to hear from each other today, and I feel like we can just leave it at that. That was really, thank you for the gift of that, being able to hear from each other and be in community with our own voices. So I'm not going to say any more on that. We are going to jump into, because we are a little bit over. We're going to get 60 seconds together in silence. Starting it. I thought I had this ready to go. Sorry. Now. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.